They're not. I checked before I did this.
Oh, okay.
Before I cut them off. The one we
Meeting
wanna watch live
downstairs.
is the- This evening's here.
And thank you all for your patience, because I was waiting for Mark to come back because the original one was for October 6th. He missed.
All right, all yours.
Great. We're here to start the Topsham Community Center Committee meeting on October 16th. Welcome, everyone. We probably should start with some introductions. We've got to get caught up and everybody to be on the same page. This is good timing for Allison. So I am Leslie Byrne. I'm one of the co-chairs. Steve Kessler is coming. He should be here probably within a half hour. So.
And I'm Brian Robertson. I'm Vice President Research at Market Decisions Research out of Portland, Maine.
I am Allison Carey Blay. I am the newest member of the TCCC, and learning about the committee and what our goals are.
I'm Ann Callahan. I'm also a member of the Topsham Community Center Committee. I serve as the secretary at this time.
Mark Waltz, Assistant Town Manager.
Mark Lee, I'm with Harriman, and we were looking for the right consultant to bring on this important aspect of the project. So we reached out to Brian at Market Decisions. So
Thank you.
And I'm Pamela Duke. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director.
Ellie?
Hi, Allie.
Hi everyone. I'm Allie Tippery and I'm the Qualitative Research Manager at Market Decisions. Great to meet all of you.
Yeah. So great. So I think we're just gonna go ahead to any changes to this agenda before we jump into any
We're not gonna do this.
an update. So anything that
Ellie needs an agenda.
oh, why don't you?
Yep, there.
Oh. Thank you. Yeah, great. So any changes, we're gonna go ahead and talk about an update and do that and then go on to our committee process. So. Sound okay? No changes to this agenda. So we'll go ahead and just catch everybody up to date and see where we are. I don't know,
Sounds
Mark,
good.
do you wanna?
yeah, maybe I'll just frame a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the last time we all met with when Harriman was present at the committee meeting, we reviewed some of the material regarding inventorying of existing spaces that are being used. But really what the missing element was is focusing in on the aspect of what the community, this question that is fundamental to this, which is what is the community looking for in a community center or community center functions? And how do we then begin that framework? And we started talking about focus groups and the engagement of the community and focus groups. And so at that time, Pam and I had some conversations just to understand how we could better support this part of the scope of the work. And I did a little research and found Brian at Market Decisions. And so it seemed like they could provide exactly the type of services that we needed. They had some experience with the town of Topsham in the past. And they have, I guess, the skills to say in a qualitative way what the community is looking for. And with that, I will turn it now over to Brian, maybe just a little introduction, Brian, to you and what you folks do and bringing you on board. So.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Brian Robertson. I'm here with Allie. We work for Market Decisions Research. We're a full service research firm. We do both quantitative and qualitative research. I do a lot of number crunching. Allie actually just sits to get out and talk to people. But as that, one of the things that we have done, and amongst everything else that we do within the kind of broader realm of public policy, is that I often work with not just towns, but even nonprofits on topics of interest to them. Our company was involved in like the general comprehensive planning process for a number of towns, of which of course recreation was generally a piece. We actually did work when it's like the nice federal government decided to get rid of your nice little Air Force base or your nice naval air base over there. And we did some work with them to get public opinion feedback on what they should be doing with that. And haven't worked with the, town of Topsham, but we just did some research with the Brunswick Topsham Land Trust on what they should be thinking about in terms of their properties and what they should be offering folks.
Of which we have a good I'm not sure if you found that out, but Angela, their former director, we worked very closely with for a long time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct. And Ally, you can add to this.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I'm a qualitative research manager, so I really enjoy doing anything qualitative. I'm also a focus group moderator and an in-depth interviewer. So I moderate a ton of focus groups, whether online or in person. Same with in-depth interviews. And I also love the design piece with qualitative research. So this is where I think I'll come in the most with this project, is really figuring out, what are the topics we want to learn from the most? What are the priorities that we want to ask? And then how do we ask these questions in a qualitative way to get, the most information we need from the actual focus groups? So creating that moderator's guide, the discussion guide, is really fun, and I love doing that. So I'm really looking forward to this project. And then of course, I love to help with other things like recruiting and analysis and reporting. But very, very much looking forward to learning more about how we can help.
I just want to say hip hip hooray.
I'm gonna ask a question that show ignorance, but in my mind, quantitative research is a lot of specific numbers, and it might be a survey that is scientifically accurate or something. Qualitative is not necessarily scientifically accurate. Can you get enough, I guess, good information to help make decisions from qualitative
So
information?
they work together.
Mhm.
Quantitative research, I guess the simplest way to say that I can provide you information at a known level of accuracy based upon the number of people I've talked to. But typically we have to limit what we gather. Because of course we can't keep people on the phone or online for an hour and a half, asking them every question we ever want to ask them. So typically we provide good detailed information. It's like maybe the best way to think about it is it's a good way to say, we've come up with some ideas. Maybe we need to determine which one are going to be the best.
Mhm.
What Ally does is like, she provides you the in-depth piece, which is she goes into a lot of depth behind the questions so that she can get the nuances of what people are saying. So the way that we have structured this is that the focus groups are a part of the process to develop the survey so that we can then get the information that you need.
Good.
Are you all aware of the survey that was done previously, summer before last? So we did a survey of 1,000 people within the community and have the results of that.
Yes.
Which are available, so.
I think
Yep.
Mark has.
I think,
Yes,
and I
I
think
know
I
you do.
supported maybe in the
Yeah.
piles of email that I.
Yeah, just because
Yeah.
when we brought that information to the Board of Selectmen, we knew it was great information, but it didn't feel like it was really a true representation of the community. And that is what we're really striving for, is that we hit all of the cohorts of the community so that everybody's represented.
Yeah, and so, and we've sort of outlined our process to develop, and I think it's our goal tonight to develop a guide. I think, Allison, that was your term, right? You used this notion of a moderator's guide to
Yes.
engage the stakeholder groups in. And the purpose of that is to help inform the survey that we're intending to send out to everyone, the broad survey. And so I think that's kind of our two-step process. And again, Brian, Allison, you can correct me if I'm wrong there, but
That is our two-step process.
all right. And so I think what we want to do at some level tonight is dig into what are the issues or questions we want to ask the stakeholder groups. And there are quite a varied amount of potential stakeholders. But I think we've kind of, and I've shared, I think that as well with Brian and his group. There's sort of, it encompasses many nonprofits and other groups in the community. Everything from, I think, the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts to different athletic clubs and many, many others as well. Even mental health, childcare providers, you name it. I think there's a large list of stakeholders.
And we, as a committee, did go through and divide up the youth, the seniors, and all the different categories. Those with disabilities, the arts, those kinds of things is how we were framing that. We do have more specific names of people in our community to share with you, but I think probably what's the best, I really want to take, and we've discussed that we want to take your lead and say, where are we going? How do we do this? So do you want to continue with, so we're talking about focus groups first. How can we help you to do what you know how to do?
So, and this is, I guess, I'll just put it the way that this was discussed with Mark and I, was that you had particular groups of people you wanted to talk to, but you needed to know what to ask them.
Right.
Yes.
I assume that's still the general process by which we're operating.
Only thing I might add to that is, a smart person, one of my bosses once used to say, you don't know what you don't know. So we as laymen in the world of, research, you know, I don't necessarily say we, I'm with a committee, said, here's ideas that we think would be useful to talk to. But would be interested in hearing if we've got the right groups, or if you think there's other groups we should be talking to, or who we left out, just based on your expertise and stuff.
So, and again, so we're thinking about this in kind of two stages. One is who you need to talk to. So I guess we can move that. And then the next thing is, what do you want to ask them? And I'll have Allie kind of go over in more detail the process. I'll just tell you, there's a big difference between qualitative research and quantitative, which is qualitative is broad. It should be open-ended. You should not really constrain people. It is not, here's a list of 6 questions. Please answer my 6 questions, because that doesn't really tell you anything. That's where, yes, you don't know what you don't know, because you thought you asked the right questions, but maybe you didn't know. And I think we talked about that, which is you let people kind of do it on their own, because that way you find out things. I can let Allie talk about that part because she's our qualitative expert.
And just if I could ask a question ahead of time. So if we're talking about focus groups in order to determine the survey, are we looking at qualitative
Yes, the focus groups would be the qualitative aspect of this.
in order to get, the focus groups would be qualitative, and then we get our survey,
Yes.
and then the quantitative, so, or how does that play together?
So the qualitative, think about it's like, here's a blank sheet of paper. What questions are we going to ask people on our survey? Again, we could write a survey. I mean, I'm fairly good at this. I could probably go based upon other recreational and other needs assessments. I could probably put together a reasonable questions. Doesn't necessarily mean it actually gets at what you're really trying to do here. I mean, you have a very specific goal for your specific group. And so the important thing is, let's not do this before the fact. Let's gather some information from the people whom this is going to impact and use that information to write the survey. And that's why you're doing these focus groups ahead of time, so that you can talk to the folks. Again, I think you probably have an idea of, in your mind, hey, this is what we're really trying to get at when we just ask questions. I think we had that lovely discussion of needs versus wants, which is a part of it. And so the idea is, let's go out there, and it's not going to be a quote unquote representative group of people, of course, because you can't talk to everything. You're not going to be able to do a focus group of 1,000 people. But it's like, let's make sure we talk to important groups and get their feedback. Let's craft some general questions around the topic we're thinking of and ask them. But again, don't say, here's 6 questions, please answer my question exactly as I word. Let it go as a conversation. And that's what I can let Allie explain what the process is when you're actually doing these.
Can I just add something?
Yes.
We wanted to, in this process, make sure we don't repeat the survey the first time, because that just sends the message that what you answered the first time was irrelevant.
Yeah.
So that's important, that we're not copying our first survey. We want to go in depth more, if that's making any sense.
Right.
Just to clarify.
So yeah, these are your governor. Number 1, first thing is you'll eventually need to know who to talk to. Number 2, what is the actual goal here? It's like, that'll define the boundaries under which you're of the questions that you're going to ask them. We're not going to do, and I presume we're not doing let's do an entire recreational needs assessment for the town of Topsham. because that's not necessarily the purpose here. It's focused, the focus will be on what the purpose you've set forth. And again, there was some, I think, you talked about, the original focus was, well, what could the community center do? And maybe it's a little broader than that now.
Yeah, well, I think that may come out of some of the conversations, both in how we want to frame the conversation for the focus groups, but also then I think probably conversation with the focus groups will help define that a little bit further.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's one of those things, what you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
So, but Ally can tell about the process about what it's like, the people we select and the types of questions we ask and the framework under which we operate the qualitative aspect. And then I can speak more to the quantitative aspect after that.
Yeah, this is actually the perfect type of project to do focus groups and then go into a survey. And exactly what we were saying earlier with, it's called a guide. A guide because, you might get into the actual focus groups and they start talking about a few different topics. You had no idea were the topics of interest. Again, you don't know what you don't know. And I think, the part of the way we create this guide is we want to start really open-ended, very open-ended. You want to go in there and just see what comes top of mind when you bring up, community center, recreational activities, what is on their mind. And then you can start developing the guide a little bit more in detail of going, okay, well, why are these things important to you? Why do you think this is important to have in the community? What would this change in your community? And so then you really get into more detail of the why, the attitudes, the beliefs behind it. Instead of, just them saying what they want in a survey, you really have their voice then. And you have some of this explanation of why they would want these certain things. And then you have the even extra great part where they're talking to each other and bouncing off of each other in the conversation and the different whys. And then you can, it's really beautiful to watch. So the way I usually do a guide is, I don't know how we want to do it today, but, start just brainstorming some of the most important topics and questions we would want to learn from the participants. And again, very open-ended. And we start making that list. And then we start thinking about maybe a few like probing questions that are a little bit more detailed as we go on with the guide. And I usually do like to start off guides with an introduction activity and an icebreaker. And then we always end a guide with an ending activity too. So, yeah.
How long, Ally, do you foresee a focus group taking place? Was it an hour? What do you normally see that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that was going to be one of my next questions for you guys. I'm not sure how many groups you want to do or if you know that yet. Or how you want to, again, build the groups. If you want people, from all the same types of background together, or if you want to mix people from different, roles and backgrounds together. But to answer your question, it's usually 90 minutes for a focus group. If you go past 90 minutes, you start to lose interest. People get a little tired, but the 90 minutes gives you enough time to have an icebreaker, get people comfortable, get people talking to each other, and then get the information you need without going too long.
It might be helpful if, right now we have two documents that I would refer to, one of them being stakeholders in the community. And I can go through that a little bit if that's helpful, just to give you an idea. So we have the arts, and within that, we have 8 businesses in the area. We have athletic and outdoor activities. And in that, we list martial arts, Topsham Trail Riders, ATV, Merrimeeting Soccer, Six Rivers, Anemba, which is a mountain bike place, Kriya, a football group. So that's how we set that. The older community, we have an assisted living, 3 assisted living places, veterans, individual, the library, volunteers, of American Northern New England. So it's like, that's how we've sort of gone about this. For teens, we have a teen center, which is actually in Brunswick. We have Midcoast Youth Center, local therapists we've thought about, guidance counselors, social workers at the school, theater, health center, student council, PTOs, we just don't know where to stop. So it feels like for young children, we have homeschool. There's a group of people who are together around homeschooling, daycares, and we have a number of daycares listed there. And then the library would also be supporting the younger group. And then for again, we have the school libraries, Topsham libraries, because we feel like librarians definitely have a connection to another angle of youth in our community. Brunswick Topsham Land Trust, caterers, so wait, we have more. Businesses wanting to potentially rent space. We have that as a listed thing. Those with disabilities, we have 6 places there. We have churches, which is 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 places there. So we went and we have addresses, we have contact people, we have emails, for everything that we could coordinate. We've all tried to contribute to that. So that's, like I said, we don't know where it begins and where it ends as far as walking in and working with you all. And then for questions, the other document is questions for focus groups. And I'll just start with the youth because there's a lot of overlap in some of them. And we listed the stakeholders within the youth. If Topsham had a community center, would you attend? And if not, why? How often do you think you would come to a community center? Would you want the center to have any of the following activities? And we have A through L listed there. Would you volunteer to help with community service programs? Would you want to help with life skill? Would you want help with life skills like cooking and balancing a checkbook? What other activities or classes would be of interest to you? So that's sort of the style that we went with. And this is Steve Kessler. You have a very low seat.
Hello.
Welcome.
Oh, hello.
Ellie's up there.
There, hi.
Nice to
So those are kind of, and then this is multiple pages of, taking those focus groups and trying to figure out how to land on that, so for athletic and outdoor activities, if you had a community center, would you attend weekly, monthly, periodically? How much would you be willing to pay for the use of the facilities? Would you want the meeting center to have any of the following activities? What supplies or setups would be of interest to you? So we tried to kind of think specifically around the group and have those questions without going into much more detail. That's the work that we've done.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think that is such a great starting point. And I think where the qualitative piece comes in is taking a lot of those questions and just turning them into, not yes or no questions, more open-ended questions, and a guide that you could go into any one of these groups and ask the same questions. I think would be, the easiest way to go about this, because it could start to get really overwhelming to have 10 different guides for, your 10 different places.
Sure.
Oh, go ahead.
No, sure. That sounds great. That's great guidance.
Yeah,
So-
I think, and there's oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, that's okay. I was gonna say, so is it worth us forwarding this information for you to kind of use to develop the moderator book, so to speak?
Absolutely. I think that would be great. I just want to back up 1 second because is your final goal to do focus groups with every single one of these groups?
We don't know that. That's
Okay.
why, we were kind of throwing these things out there to you, but really we want to know what questions you would ask because you're the experts.
Yeah.
And so we are not experts in this area. We put together what we thought we could come up with, but really there are things we don't know, as Mark said, and we really wanted this night to be where you told us more than we told you. I was kind of hoping we would hold off on giving our information to see what they had to say, but
I think it's important to know the work that we've done. It's not specific. Right. It's not, we're not set in this. I just wanted to give you a reference for what we've done and then hoping that then you could put it together for us.
Yeah, and some of my immediate thoughts that just came to mind. It is a lot of work and time to do a lot of focus groups with different, in that you're talking about, 10 plus groups and organizing that and dates and time, it can get really complicated. What might be interesting for this project is mixing up the groups, inviting, people from athletics, people from mental health, having these people come together and talk to each other and have that conversation. That's an option. You don't have to go in that direction at all. And then the other thing I want to mention is something to always keep in mind with qualitative, which is very different from quantitative, is, with quantitative and surveys, you want that N pretty big. You want to be able to generalize your information, across the population that you're trying to learn from. With qualitative, you can't really generalize, right? Because you're never going to, you're not going to talk to hundreds of people unless it's a crazy project. So I always think of, the N in qualitative research is the quality of the information that you're getting from people. So usually for any project that we do focus groups, we usually do 4 to 6 groups. We usually don't do more than that. Once you start going over 6 groups, you'll start hearing the same information, and themes. So I don't know what you guys think about that. Doing, 4 to 6 groups and maybe mixing in different voices from the different stakeholder groups.
I think a good advantage to that, Ally, is it may be easier to get people to participate. For instance, if we had a midday group and an evening group and a Saturday group, if we're not trying to get all the people, all the childcare providers at a certain time or something, we probably are going to have better overall turnout. So I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've hi Ally. We've actually already, as a group, agreed upon limiting the groups to about 5 anyway. So we're right on board with you right there.
What is the approximate number of people you would typically have in each group?
So for in-person groups, usually invite around 10 to 12, hoping 6 to 8 show up. I would say my sweet spot for in-person groups is that 8 number. If you get up to 10, that's okay. If it gets more than 10, it can get a little chaotic and you're not able to hear from everyone in that amount of time. So that's usually what I shoot for. If you're doing any online groups, the sweet spot for me is 6 people in an online group. But so you invite 10, the 6 to 8 is a sweet spot for online.
And what do you find is best for getting the data you want, or the thought process that you want, online or group, in person?
Amazing question. It's people have very strong feelings about this question. Honestly, if you have a good moderator, it doesn't matter. That is my overall feeling. I, in the end, prefer in-person groups just because I love being in person with people and meeting and having that face-to-face. But I will say, if you have a mixed option of online and in person, it makes the participation, numbers probably a little stronger to make it a little bit more flexible for participants. So either works really.
So as we begin to move forward, and I'm just trying to understand how you see it methodically happening. And I'm aware of some other similar types of projects and what's occurred. We're gonna have 6 groups. We're gonna have maybe 1 that's online and the other 5 in person. You're gonna provide us a moderator's guide with the questions and that part. How do we document? How do we gather? How do we hold on to everything that comes out of that? Is there someone that's a scribe for the group? Is there something that you provide to us in the moderator package that we kind of make those notes?
Or is Ally the moderator?
Or
Or are you the moderator for some of these, Ally, or?
No, we did. Fortunately, it's like, this is largely consultation.
Okay.
So again, that is probably stretching Ally's resources out a bit.
That's what I thought,
Yeah.
so.
I know.
Stop.
I'm sorry, guys.
Well, she is an amazing moderator.
When she was talking about that, I was thinking, oh, she should be good at moderator.
So the one thing I can tell you, so you've identified a lot of groups. Actually, you did a lot more than identified. It's like you identified the way you're going to recruit these groups. So you just ran through a list of, we know this group, this group, this group, this group, this group. We got all their emails. You found the perfect way to recruit some people.
Yeah.
So you don't think of those as the groups you're going to think of those as the mechanism by way you're going to recruit them. 2, somewhere to I would get some general public people in here, at least extend the opportunity for them to participate.
What is a general public? person?
Anybody.
Just put an
That
announcement
it's
out.
happening.
Yes.
Here's the.
Rather than going to the specific channel.
Yeah.
And they may just be that you're getting the same people just through a different mechanism. And then three, I don't know how you would balance. It's like, you wouldn't want to just make sure you got, okay, we sent something out and all we got were 65 people or 65 who want to do it. You want to make sure that you're kind of balancing, that you really are getting some broad representation. So it's a question of, it's like fitting the puzzle pieces in. And I guess you're right. If you do 5 groups, say, here's some times, that gives you a greater capacity to actually do this. And so I think the way we've generally done it is like we kind of pre-recruit people and then invite them. Is that right? If we have something like this?
Yeah, well, we usually have a screener that goes out, just saying, here's an opportunity, see if you're eligible for this and if you're available. And this is where they can fill out their availability, any demographics you want to know, where are they, where are they coming from? What's their role? You could even ask, are they male or female? What's their race? And then once you have that information, you can start building the groups yourself. And then you send out the invitations to the actual group.
So you're saying we would take the list that we have now.
Mhm.
We would send one general from the co-chair saying, this is what we're in the process of doing. We'd like to know if you're interested in participating. Please respond to this online form that we can create. And then once we get that by a certain date, give them a deadline to do everything. And I guess
Yes.
I'm a methodical person in this part, so then we would figure out when the time, who it is that we're, the people that are all interested, then we'd sit down and kind of look at the connections or what would make a good mix of these people know each other and this might help to encourage the discussion, that type of thing. And then we would set those times up.
And then you send specific invitations out to the people that you select.
Got it. Okay.
Would
Yeah.
it less,
What's the
maybe
best
it's not
time
as
for you?
effective, but maybe less work. We created a mix of times and days of the week, and then took the 100 people we have email addresses or whatever they're interested. Give them like a sign up genus type thing and let them pick the times that
Yeah, that's,
set their own groups as opposed to trying to.
yeah, well, no, exactly, Ali, that's exactly what you do, right? You put a calendar and say, here are the times, which ones work for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that screener, you would put set dates already. So part of your building is seeing who's available on what date.
Good.
And that that simplifies it greatly
And
because
if Monday evenings, turns out more people sign up for it, we can handle them a group than we do 2 Monday nights, and we drop the Sunday noon that no one signed
Yeah.
up for. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
so that's the first stage. So again, it seems like you've already accumulated a list. And again, I presume there's just a channel that you can broadcast out to the general town populace.
Sort of. There's a newspaper that Pam puts together once every month. We have a page.
There you go.
We're also finding our most effective way hiring public works employees has been putting a bulletin at town hall.
Yeah, really?
How many companies have you gotten since Thursday?
We've already had a couple people come in and get
Oh my
applications, which we hadn't anyone 2 months before.
Right.
And then we just had a banner made up. We have a special town meeting coming up on November 2nd that we're gonna put out front. And the sad thing is, now that most people don't subscribe to the local newspaper anymore, I think the best way to get information out is to be a sign in front of town hall.
But we do have, for instance, like the recreation department has a email list of participants and people like that, that we could pick residents and extend an invitation. We have, the groups that we have here, the library has a listserv of residents that we could certainly get,
There's not
invite
one
or
source.
participate.
Yeah.
The select board has a group of alert that things go out to, so we certainly can get in contact. And the last time we did this, that was the way we did it. We
Yeah.
mailed it out in the town crier,
Yeah.
which is our local newspaper. And then we had a link to the site where they went in and they filled out what they want.
There you go. Oh, yeah, Ali, wish we had big lists like that we can recruit from.
Oh, yeah, that is magic. Recruitment can be a huge pain and difficult. And you guys, it seems like you guys will have no trouble at all, to be honest, which leads to my next, or I wanted to finish answering your question too. You know, how for our groups, we do always record them. So that is one of my biggest suggestions is you want to be able to record the groups and then be able to get transcripts after, take those recordings and put it through a transcript service. That will be the best way in the end to start analyzing, you know, the feedback. A moderator always has a note taker with them too. So the moderator cannot be taking notes the whole time, that you want them to be present, really active in the discussion with the participants. So making sure you have a note taker with you who's able to, you know, take notes and be there with the moderator. And then I think my question for you guys is, are you offering any incentive, or is it just volunteer for the focus groups?
We might have leftover Halloween candy.
Wow. Don't go in his office is all
I'm going, right? I'm going.
Did I answer it, Alan?
So for the
We have not
transcript,
talked about any incentives.
Well, I guess that's
does
not
the town have a
true.
transcription service?
We talked about it.
Do you mean that like a computer program that that transcribes things, or you mean a literal?
Like Otter
paying
AI,
someone
is that
to-
what you're talking about?
We
Like
actually, well,
Otter
we
AI?
actually use transcription services when we did it. I don't know what your experience with the online versions are.
I have an Otter AI account, and there are a few mistakes. I would say it's 95% accurate.
But probably for this purpose. that
That's
would
fine.
probably
When
work.
I do Zoom meetings and I need a transcript,
Mm.
but I don't know if that's what we.
I had never heard of it, so I'm
Okay.
fascinated.
Knowing what I used to have to pay to get like police stuff transcribed, it was a small fortune, so probably your versions.
Nowadays,
If it's not wanted the service, it's $10 a month you pay for annually.
Yeah, that's a lot cheaper than.
Yeah.
hourly rate.
Chat IPG is even cheaper.
What is
We actually have already talked about the incentives, because that's why there is some money set aside in case you decide that we should incentivize these groups.
It depends. I mean, you guys will know better with your community. You might have people who really actively want to participate and they don't need an incentive. The incentive piece, it just helps make sure people show up and that, you're compensating them for their time.
What type of things, I mean, I think what Steve's referring to is that we can provide food, we can provide, an atmosphere, pizza maybe one night for a group to come, that type of
Or
thing.
pancakes at 5.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not.
Well, Well, we were actually talking about including some of the local businesses and seeing if, like, 144 Maine or whatever wanted to.
104, yeah.
Or 104 wanted to put in a platter of food to bring in. So tonight's focus group is sponsored by this restaurant.
Okay.
So, but it's,
Steve's in charge of that portion.
well, I was gonna help, but I think Ally will confirm, unfortunately, cash is king.
It is true. The average compensation right now for a 90-minute focus group is, $75 to $100 per participant, whether that's a gift card, cash, or check.
And that's a
Yeah.
nonprofit, that's a nonprofit, even with working with nonprofits,
Oh.
that's the incentive? Wow,
It's, yeah,
Stay to
yeah.
win.
that is.
I have to be honest, quite frankly. That ain't
That's,
gonna happen.
okay,
here.
that's the,
Yeah.
well, then.
I think Steve's idea
Yeah.
of maybe having a gift card.
I'll
To
say
give
like a
to that
$5
group.
Dunkin' Donuts.
I know.
Yeah, right.
You guys aren't from Maine, are you?
I don't think
Oh.
you guys will have trouble at
No.
all, especially with this type of project. I think
Yeah.
people will be happy to participate.
Well, again, the pitch you're making is, we're doing something for the town. Do you want to have a say in it?
Yeah.
I mean, to put it
exactly.
politely. So I don't think, yes, in this particular case, it'd be nice, yeah, if you put some food out and maybe a couple pieces. I don't think you need to pay them
We could
$75.
even get some gift cards
Yeah.
donated and, draw a name at the end of the session or something like that
Yeah.
for people.
I think the people who show up are gonna be there for altruistic reasons. It's not
Right.
gonna be to
Yes.
get gift
I
cards.
think you're right.
So,
And
totally.
no point stressing, making the local businesses that keep getting
Yeah,
hit for
yep.
donations to have to do.
Throw a
this.
couple pizzas on the table or some
Yeah.
sandwiches, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Again, that's,
Here, Ally, here's your pizza.
I
But
would kill for some pizza right now, so.
I'll send you a pizza emoji.
This 5 o'clock meeting time, this doesn't work.
There you go.
What time is it there? 2?
It's 2:40. I know, I feel always like I'm in both time zones, so it's funny, but, the one, someone mentioned this, I forget who, just throwing it out there. I usually get more out of focus groups when they don't all know each other in the focus group. So I would say, it can be intimidating if there's like 3 people who really know each other well, and then a couple people from different, and then, they can like maybe, take over the conversation a little bit. So, and it gets really interesting if there's more people that don't know each other at all or don't know each other very well. So just throwing that out there when you're building the groups.
Do you recommend not having 3 people from the same neighborhood on the committee?
there you go.
We digress.
So then we have the transcribed information from the meetings. So then what?
Can I ask one other question before we dive into that?
Yeah.
What is the general timeline? I guess, what would your recommendation be as far as we should have questions or a moderator guide ready in a certain amount of time, and then have how long to do the focus groups, and what is kind of the general time frame that you would follow in a situation like this?
When do you want to do the groups? I think Ally would say, what, 2 weeks? It's like, if you want to give yourself lots of time, 2 weeks to develop everything.
Yeah, I would say for guide, usually takes 1 to 2 weeks. Recruitment, you guys have an easier recruitment, and it will work better for recruitment if you recruit closer to the group so people don't forget, but you don't want to do it too close to the group. So around, 2 weeks of recruitment, having the groups. So I'd say, yeah, about 2 to 4 weeks for that process.
Yeah, so the way to think about it is work your way backwards. The groups are here, which means I have to have recruiting started here, which means I have to have the guide by here.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
and again, Ally, I don't know what your perspective on groups are, but I always kind of learn Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, I thought I had a rule of thumb with this, but it really depends on the population at this point.
I guess Saturday might work in some groups.
Yeah, I would do, when you're choosing the dates in that screener, or however you do it, is to just have options, like, I forget if Mark or Steve said it, have evening option, have an afternoon option, have a weekend option, just give people options.
And so kind of the to-dos out of this particular site. So you've already got the sample in a sense ready to go. Because you just need to aggregate all this various email list into a list that you can send out. Once you have the date, of course, you got to set the dates. You'll just need to write a real brief paragraph for recruiting. Hi, we're members of the Topsham Community Center Planning Commission. We are doing this, give them a purpose. We are looking for your input. If you're interested, click on this link and take them to a survey, ask them whatever questions you want to ask them to fill in the dates, gather that information, take that list, get an idea when work, what times work, what times don't work, go through and say, hey, let's make sure we got a good mix, and then send out invitations to those people that you want to invite.
To each specific group.
You can say, congratulations, it's like, you're signed up for the Tuesday at 5:30 PM group. If you're still interested in attending, please let us know. Anything, does that cover the basic sampling and recruiting process, Ally?
Yeah, and I was trying to think, do you guys have in mind what you would use? Because I was thinking you could even use like Google Forms, something like that, to make sure everything's in the same.
Yeah, that's what we did in the past. It was all through Google Form.
Yeah. If need be, we actually have a pretty slick piece of software that we do our surveys in. That it gathers data and it actually puts it in a form that's fairly easy to analyze.
But we're not analyzing anything at this point.
Well, you have to analyze it's like how many we want to have a couple, it's like we want to have, all right, we're doing 5 groups, we want to have, 5 teens or 5 youth, and we want to have 5 people that are involved in outdoor recreation, and we want to have 5 elderly. And so you got to think about analyzing that way, which is not really number crunching, but you're trying to figure out, I need a mix of these various populations. Let's see if we can't make it all fit within the 5 or so groups that we have set up. So, yeah, so that's gonna be some of the important questions that you're gonna have to ask, is you're gonna have to have some identifiers within the screening tool to say, are you involved in the arts? It's like, what are these, what are you involved with? Arts, recreation, outdoor activities, teen activities, so that you can identify them groups.
And you're gonna help us with that? Is that part of what we're doing?
I think you've already identified the groups. You already have a list of it. It's like, again, what
Just
you're
wanna
doing.
make sure it's.
Although I think if we follow
representative.
Ally's advice, we're not gonna try to divide them, right? We're just gonna.
No, what you're doing is you're identifying, you're not gonna divide them by that group. What you're trying to do is, I want to make sure I have some teens, so I have to have something in there that tells me that this is a teen.
Yeah.
Or this is.
Oh,
In our 5 groups.
Do we care to get the perfect mix in every group? Or
No.
do we just, because I'm thinking we make it a lot simpler,
No.
and we just pick 5 dates and times, mix them all up. We send our invites and say, we're doing this, we want your input. Let us know where to sign up for works best for you, and then we'll let it, maybe one group ends up being more artists and seniors.
Well, that's the problem though. What if you just end up with 5 groups of people that are 65 and older?
Then, but if they're the only ones that care to sign up.
Right.
We're not going.
So the thing is, it's like you can't necessarily different. Ally, what do you think? It's like, would it be useful for them to differentiate, I guess, the stakeholder groups?
Yeah, so I just did, I built some groups today, and you are, usually the availability will override and help who's attending what group, no matter what. So when I downloaded, everyone who took this screener for a particular focus group project, the first thing I did was separate them into which days could they actually attend the focus group. And then after I separate them that way, and then you look at the breakdown of the other demographics, what is their role, what is their gender, you're just making sure you have an okay mix. Doesn't have to be perfect, but again, maybe you want to mix it up and have like men and women in there. Maybe you want to mix it up and, make sure, again, it's not everyone from mental health services. So I think you guys are both right. The dates are just going to help you no matter what. It will help randomize it in general, but then you're making sure with the other information you get from the screener that it's a little bit more evened out throughout the groups.
Yeah, I mean, you're adding one question, which is, I'm involved with the arts community. It's like, I'm involved with outdoor recreation, check out that apply.
It sounds like you're envisioning a 2-step process. I was trying to make it into one, but I see the reasons for the 2 with it.
Right.
Well, I think if I'm understanding it correctly, I've done something similar like this at work. And I think if you're sending out the email and you're saying, click on it to join the event that works best for you. Hey, you're already here. Why don't you answer a couple of the questions while you're here? Are you in the arts? Are you in youth basketball, whatever? Then when we get the list back, we have the email address, their first preference for time. And we as a community will already know what demographic they're falling into. So we can decide what those additional questions
Right.
are. So that when we split up the list, if we have 20 people all for one thing, we could say, hey, could you do your second choice? And we'd split up the groups a little bit more.
Yeah. And again, hopefully not everyone's just saying, no, I want Saturday AM. Hopefully that they're willing to take a couple of dates.
Well, it's interesting too, because it may be that people identify with more than one function.
And that's okay.
Too.
You can identify as many functions as you want to.
Even
So
better.
where do we go from here?
So I think it's like, for this particular part, the 2 do's are, number 1, aggregate the list that you're eventually gonna email out to. 2, come up with a brief paragraph that just describes exactly what you're doing. That'll be in the email. 3,
Actually, can pull the one from before, working on that. isn't it?
3, set your dates, because you're gonna need to have those for the invitation. Or think about the particular questions, and the questions I would ask, what do you think, Alex? Age, gender, and then interest in some sort of interest in activities that would get at the particular stakeholders you're asking about. I don't know if you need to ask anything else, Ally?
No, I don't think so. Then just, the dates question.
When we do locations also, if we do in person.
Yeah, you could do, it's like, would you prefer in person, virtual, no
Right.
preference? And so,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
literally, you're
usually
asking them
say-
to answer. They're answering 5 questions, and they'll be done with it. And, are you interested? Click here.
And Elliot, I think you said the goal is to target 10 to 12 in order to get
Mhm.
6 to 8, I think, right? So if
Per
you're doing
group.
5, right? So if you're doing 5, you're targeting a group of 50 to 60 people.
Perfect.
So, and again, make sure that, and yeah, the number. Make sure it's like we're determining that there's interest. Don't say, if you sign up, you're gonna go.
Right.
Make sure it's like, yes, we're trying to just identify people who might be interested. Dad, don't, it's like, yeah, because there'll be some people that might get upset if they don't get picked, I would gather. And then, so that gets you the mechanism to pick the groups, and then, all right, we figured out who we want, kind of. Here's the 12 we would optimally take for this group, here's the 12 we'd optimally take for that group, send them an email. Thank you again for agreeing to participate.
Here's the information for the group you've been invited to.
And please confirm, send an email to confirm or something to that effect. And again, and then hold on to this just in case, because, if actually, Ally, I might actually get their telephone number too, come to think of it.
Yes, I was just gonna say telephone number and email. I always like to do tech checks, is what I call them. The day before or the morning of the groups, you give them a call, you send them a reminder email that it's happening. People forget or they get busy. So I would make sure someone's available on your guys' team to do that, to make sure, they get that reminder.
So, and at this stage, I presume you'd be happy to look over their invitation email and their little survey. So once you get something, Ally will look it over and add her thoughts. So that takes care of the first part. So the second part now is, what do you want to ask these people? So I will tell you, it's like what you have there is closer to a survey than it is to a focus group moderator, Scott.
Okay.
And Ally can, again, so this is why Ally says it's like for this stage, generally, we kind of think about designing something. It's real, hey, what do you guys think off the top of your head? So for instance, we had a lovely conversation about what do you need versus, or what would you like versus, well, what do you really need? It was an interesting kind of conversation we had about what would go on at a community center, because if you ask, hey, we're building a community center, what do you want? Well, they're going to tell you exactly everything they want. They're going to want an Olympic-sized swimming pool, 4 bowling alleys, probably a racetrack, and
Yes.
and so, yeah, so the interesting thing is like, yeah, but you kind of want to know that though, in a strange sort of way. So think about this, kind of backstep. It's like, what are we trying to learn here? And again, that's where the interesting conversation is. It just about the community center, or is this broader than that? Again, do we need to build an Olympic-sized swimming pool someplace else?
And I think that one of the questions we had in the beginning was, are we meeting the needs of the community? And I can tell you, I feel that we do well in the athletic venue, but are we meeting the needs in art? And are we meeting the needs for the senior citizens? Are we meeting the needs for, those other components?
I can give you an example. We have pickleball courts at our local elementary school. And no one's allowed to use them. And we have seniors who want to play pickleball. Do we need to build a pickleball court for adults, or can we utilize the school ones off hours? That's the kind of stuff we're looking at. Like, how can we mesh together what seniors may want or other people may want, and how can we use the facilities we already have without adding to cost?
And we've gotten through, like the pickleball, they do it after school, not in the spring when there's tennis classes, that kind of thing, but we're getting there. But I think there's more we can collect.
an example.
No, I agree, but I think it's something we need to get more.
And Ally, what do you think? I think what are the needs of the community? That's a pretty darn good focus group question.
That is the STAR focus group.
Recreational needs of the community?
No, you could start with the question, let's just sit down as a group. If you were to think about what are the needs of the community? You say something, you say something, you say something. If you want more space, well, okay, let's think specifically about arts. What are the needs of the community when it comes to arts? What are the needs of the community when it comes to our senior citizens? And what you're going to get is, it's like, here's what everyone thinks is relative. It's like, here's what we think we need. It doesn't necessarily say that it has to go in the community center. Just what you're trying to identify is the broad spectrum of what you're asking, which is, hey, I need to know what we really need for this community. Now, then we can get a little further down the line and maybe get a little more detail about it.
You frame it at all, I mean, other than, we need, longer hours at the transfer station, or, I mean, you want some guidelines about.
So, but what Ellie will
I
do
know
is
things
this.
don't want it.
Well, you never know. It's like you have to put the transfer station, the community center.
I
So Ellie,
think they're gonna talk to us ever.
What I like about that question is, like Harpswell ended up building a bandstand on a Mitchell field. It could be like, yeah, we'd like to have a place to go out and have.
so Ellie, what do you think? It's like, again, originally, we'll eventually get down to, this is gonna have to do with the community center, but I don't think necessarily you want to start with. What do we need to build in a community center? It's more a question of what are the needs. I think you can,
We'll go into our
Yeah.
mission statement too.
Right.
You know, and if we think about that, the
Right.
mission of the community center. Committee is to understand the desires and needs of the Topsham community to identify accessible, affordable, sustainable. Recreational solutions that will serve the multi-generational community and social connection among Topsham citizens.
So how do we
that's-
make that?
Yeah,
the
we need to
question?
focus.
I don't, I'm sorry, and
Yeah.
Ally, I think what you can tell them, you can count, there's an introductory process in the focus group that Ally can probably explain to you. Which provides the kind of the ground rules for doing it to the people. And that's just a part of the process, and when the moderators guards develop, that's what's built into it. But
Yeah, I mean, that's the perfect place to explain the mission in general, the point of the groups. And then you ease into, what we're expecting from the conversation. And then you ease into, a fun icebreaker where it could be like, all right, everyone gets a piece of paper, you write down one thing that you would want the most in a perfect world out of your community, right? And then everyone does it, and then everyone shares it. Instantly we'll start conversation of people going back and forth. And then you start getting more tailored to, the key topics of the guide after that. I just lost my train of thought.
yeah, and the way it's like, I would do that. It's like, this is the reason why we're here today. I would still start out with the question like as broad as what are the needs of the community within that framework. And then as need be, again, depending on what people say, if they're just saying, we want a tennis court and we want some outdoor swimming pool, then what you can do is it's like ask appropriate follow-up questions to get to the information. Well, okay, well, that's some great ideas when it comes out to records. What are the needs of the community in terms of art? And you can direct them down a path that way. What are the needs of our senior citizens? Especially you senior citizens, what are your needs? So if it's like, again, the advantage of focus groups is they're fluid. The advantage of a survey is it's written in stone and it doesn't get changed. So that's the advantage of the thing. It gives you the maneuvering room to explore a topic. But you're not locked into it. Again, if they go out and say, here's all the wonderful outdoor activities that we really need in this town, then you wouldn't specifically need to ask a question about outdoor activities. So, Ally, other than that kind of broad, can you think of any other kind of broad questions that would be useful?
Well, I think it is, I forget who said this, but really digging into what would actually make them participate or go to a community center. Like what would actually get them to go up and do it and go. I think that's an important question. I think in these types of groups, you can get stuck in like at the beginning of people complaining sometimes or venting about, what the community needs, and to make sure we steer it in a more solution oriented at the end. Because, it's trying times right now. You don't want to get stuck in just like the venting of what they need. It's like, okay, you need this. Let's talk about the solutions. What would make you actually go and, kind of steer it a little more. And then what else did I see here? Yeah, how would, I know you guys had like, how much would you pay? I don't know how important that question is. That can get tricky in a focus group, I think.
I think that came up with a question of like, somebody wants a pool that's gonna be multi-million dollars. Are they willing for their property taxes to go
Yes.
up to have this pool? Are they willing to pay for a membership? Could we sustain this pool through personal funds, through income, you
Yeah.
know, renting it to the local hospital to use as a therapy pool, you know, like, how can we come up with fundings to make a pool accessible and affordable and sustainable? And
But
so,
that would be in the qualitative,
So,
or I mean, that would be in the quantitative.
oh, I think I mean,
You can
so.
ex-
So it's like, we're starting out really broad. What's the community need? Da, 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 da. It's like, again. I mean, one of the questions I might ask there, it's like, hey, bring up the topic of the community center. This is what we're thinking of. Hey, you just gave us some great ideas of what the community needs. What kind of activities would you want if we were to have a community center? What would you want there? Da, 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 da. They've already told you exactly what they want. So. Then you can.
And then you go into the access part of it. What's gonna make you
Well, would make you
participate?
go there. And then, again, this is why it's fluid. If they're talking about things, well, they don't necessarily want an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and they don't necessarily want this. Okay, maybe we don't need to talk about funding, but if they are talking about big things like that, you can talk about funding in a broad sense. It's like, all right, so we've had some great ideas here about what you want. Now you do, it's like, a part of this process is going to be understanding how we actually pay for this. Now, what are your thoughts? It's like, if we're going to do this, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Again, it's a question of whether, again, it's like the conversation might naturally go there if you're asking for community sized Olympic swimming pools. It's like, you could ask questions about, it's like, well, what do you think about a mill levy as a way to fund this? What do you think about this? What do you think? And you're probably gonna let people, oh, no. And that's again, why we had that lovely conversation about needs versus wants, which is, if you want, it's like, yes, if you want it, that's great. You do understand there's gonna be a cost. And again, the survey later on in the process will get a little more specific about that. They'll say, here's, because you're gonna start asking about specific things that they mentioned. And you can say, if you want this, this is what funding mechanism would you want us to use? So other than that, I think the only other thing that, I don't know if this is still an issue, was location. Or is that settled?
Oh, of what I think.
Yeah, where do you want to put this thing?
Oh,
No, it's not settled.
oh, no, we're not ready for that.
They
yeah,
have no choice. You don't need to ask that question.
Yeah,
that's further down the
We're
road.
Set that we even, that part of this might be
Right.
that we don't need, we just need services or.
right, and that's one of the things, it's like, okay, I mean, you may want to insert, what do you think about this? What do you think? It's like, so what do you think, Ally? Some general question before we start saying, what do you want at the community center? Hey, this is what we're thinking about. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so what you do is a kind of, here's some things we need. Here's the description we want. Hey, what do you think about this as a general idea? Good, bad, just give us your feedback. Great, let's move on. What would you like? What would make you go there? If need be, maybe then you can delve into, well, it's gonna cost $5 million to put an Olympic sized swimming pool. How do I pay for it? And right there, you got a fairly decent moderator's guard to start with. I mean, you probably got an hour's worth of conversation right there.
Do you recommend we use the same moderator for all 5 or different ones or?
If possible, I would use the same, just try to keep it consistent. And then you don't have to train, 5 different people with the guide. The moderator will hopefully just know the guide. They won't need to, keep looking at it. I mean, it'll be there for reference, but to really, be there in the conversation, be able to jump around. Because, it's not going to go chronologically every time.
And then after the transcribed notes come back, then I'm imagining that there's some level of analysis of going through and finding all the common points, which is what will help distill the whole aspect of a survey. Is that's something that we just then there'll be another whole workshopping of, okay, how do we
Right.
translate
This and
what we've learned into a survey?
yeah, well, and it depends. Hey, what do you think of us having a community center? No, it's like, I guess you got the answer. So it's like, that's the thing. You won't know what the survey looks like until you actually get this feedback. Again, that's why I'm hesitant to say, well, I could probably design a lovely survey that says, hey, how interested are you in community center? It's like, how interested do we offer these things? But if there's just no support for it, then it's like, it doesn't do me good to ask, what would you want in a community center when nobody wants a community center? So. And I'm just,
So we're taking the opinion of 60 people?
Yeah.
And
that is not the sole thing that you're gonna base it upon. So there's expertise here too. Again,
the previous survey.
Yeah.
And the previous, survey, yeah.
so you have some material, but again, I'm presuming that no one's gonna say, no, we don't want a community center. I'm hoping.
If so, they would show up at the meeting. So-
So,
Sounds like these focus groups may lead to broader desired services than what was originally
Yeah.
on the first survey.
And-
Assuming from the question that
Right.
we.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean.
Right, absolutely. It's actually
Because
good.
you can ask, it's like one other question I might think about inserting somewhere on this alley would be, oh, here's a bunch of needs. How can the town of Topsham best go about providing these needs? I might ask that before I ask it.
That's a good way of maybe framing the whole aspect of, supporting it through, some level of a cost piece, right?
Because then you go, hey, we're thinking about a community center is one way of doing this.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? What activities should we potentially do there? And what should we offer elsewhere? And then, yes, by the way, how does it get around to us? We're actually going to fund this thing. And by the way, where do you want us to put it?
We can stay away from that.
So, but again, that's like I said, Ally, I don't know what you think. That's a pretty long focus group moderator guide. I have figured, given the fact I have a feeling that you start asking people what their community needs, you're gonna,
Yeah, they'll
You're
have a
gonna-
lot to talk about, and then you'll have probes depending on who's there, where people will want to focus on talking about athletics for a second. Some people want to talk about arts for a little bit, so this is, I think, already a great skeleton for a guide. I think one thing we might want to define what a community center is at the beginning too, because that probably people, I don't know what they think about or that's a question. When I say community center,
That's a question, I think, yeah.
like what does that mean to you guys? Because it'll mean different things.
Can I just ask too, I'm gonna say it, market decisions, are you going to write this part of that up for us? I see you taking notes.
with
so-
your help. So what we'll do is we have Ally take me, we got some fairly decent questions, all right, Ally?
Oh,
That we
yeah.
can work with. The thing that we need to know is upfront, you'll have to describe, why are we doing this focus group? And
Yes,
you've got
you can
to,
do the paragraph.
and you've got a good
That's-
paragraph there.
That's no problem.
And then describe maybe in a paragraph, this is what we're thinking about. We're
Yeah.
thinking
And
about a
we'll give
community
that-
center.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then we can provide, and then the only other piece I think that I might ask your help for, what are the needs of the community? Pretty darn broad. I got art, senior citizens, if there's specific topics that you want to potentially broach in there. Other
We'll
than,
share the documents
Right.
with you.
and not necessarily that they would be, here's a question, answer these 10 questions about, what do you want for arts? What do you need for senior citizens? It's more of a guide of, is it something that's come up? Great, we don't have to, it's like, check it off. But if it's something that's relatively important for you to get a sense, then yes, we can say, oh, this is great. We've got a lot of ideas flowing around there. Hey, let's think about something a little different. What do you think about our senior citizens? What do you think they need in our community? And just use it as a guide, kind of as a guidepost. So, what do you think, Ally?
Yeah, I think we have all we need to get you guys a draft of that mod guide. I'd even say by the end of the week. And you'll see, the outline that I usually do is, again, it'll have that introduction piece where we'll put some of, your paragraphs and then how the focus group works. And then, we will have, our open-ended questions. And what Brian is talking about is underneath those, absolutely those open-ended questions that we will ask in every group, we will have some probes, just as a reminder for the moderator to be like, okay, they didn't mention any arts though. So I'm just going to probe them and be like, okay, just what about arts though? Anyone have feelings about that, to make sure that we're covering that if it doesn't come up naturally.
So just to kind of go away with clear homework guidelines for everyone. Brian and Ally, what do you need? Do you need anything immediate from this group before you put together the draft of the moderator guide?
What do you think, Ally? I think you got a grasp of the questions they want asked.
Yeah, I do. I wouldn't mind seeing the, if you can somehow email me the questions I'm forgetting your name. I'm so sorry that.
Leslie is Leslie and Pam, one of us would.
Yeah, probably email the mission statement too. That'd be
There you go.
helpful.
Yeah.
That would be great. I think, but I think with that, we
Tomorrow
have it
morning.
covered.
Did we talk about what the committee is to, like, what we're doing? Have we talked about that at all? Like how the process is of getting a
I think
community
we have to
center?
get there after we get this.
Okay.
Or I think
Because
maybe what you missed is they're more consultants. So
Alright,
we would be the moderator and would be inviting the people.
And that's fine, but the process of how to get an actual community center. Is that all out on the table, like why we're here as a committee?
I think that's step 2. We're really on step 1, needs
Okay,
assessment.
well,
I mean, I guess the how to get it would be if the needs assessment said there was, the need,
Then
take
we
it back to
move
the select board.
What can
Right,
we
well, what
need
I'm
to
sort of
build,
getting
can
at
we
is
buy?
not to try to, with our questions, kind of lean them towards. We want a community center, we really want their actual feedback, like, do they really want one on their own terms? Like, we don't want to nudge them
Yeah.
in any
Right.
direction, we sort of, we sort of want them to understand that we're even keeled, we're here to decide whether we need one or we don't need one, not that we're all gung ho for a community
Yeah.
center.
Well-
Secondly, is my understanding that we would take, the questions and then do the focus groups and all that, and then we combine all that data and then put that towards a survey.
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
And we're-
So,
And then do we meet again?
yes, we'll work it. So what you're doing is you're starting out, you're asking a bunch of questions that have nothing to do with the community center.
Great,
Then the first question you ask about a community center is, what do you think about this?
great,
And then the next questions are, let's talk about what's gonna get you there, what we should offer there.
awesome.
So that,
There should be, I guess, a lack of a bias, maybe is the right terminology, not necessarily bias, but a lack of bias towards a new community center. It's more about, let's understand what the
Right.
needs are.
and you're looking at this, hey, this is one possible way we could do it. What do you think about building a community center? Then da, 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 da.
The only bias that may have, which I don't know how we can get around, is that this is the community center committee.
Well,
And we're inviting people to come give input to it, so probably the people will be self-selective to some extent, they're gonna wanna spend the hour and a half, maybe ones that are.
then again, like I said, when you craft invitations, say it has to come to the committee, but say the purpose of this is to better understand the needs of our community.
Mhm.
And you just don't bother to mention the community center or anything.
But I do like being prepared to bring up items that maybe were not discussed,
Yeah.
like the arts, et cetera, elderly, things like that, to be prepared for that.
So our next meeting is scheduled for November 6th. It's a Monday. At 6:15 is actually the time that meeting is going to take place. Will we have that guideline by then?
I think Ally could probably have you, it's like, Ally, you said you could have it by the end of the week. Is that right?
And that we
She
have all
said
our
today.
input in it yet?
Well, it's gonna
Yeah,
have,
that was my next question. I've had some good experience lately just sharing a draft of a guide through SharePoint. So everyone has access to the same document and everyone can, comment on it. So you guys aren't, sending back Word documents and such. So if that works for everyone, then everyone can work on that simultaneously. And then I can also see your guys' feedback.
It would also be helpful, Ally, if you could just in that booklet, put the TCCC will put a paragraph talking about this, and then we'll know where to plug it in and what you're expecting from us.
There you go.
And you use SharePoint, and I just want to make sure that committee members have access to SharePoint and can do that.
I don't currently have access to it.
Oh,
Is that-
actually, Ally, I think we can just set them up on our SharePoint site, right? And just send them the links.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll just open up for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure that people
Yeah.
knew how it works.
So all we
And
need,
if it doesn't work, I have no problem emailing it in the end, so.
so I guess I'll argue your homework is we need a list of everyone's emails. Because we'll send,
That can
invite,
happen.
we've got most of them, but we can get the rest of them.
yeah,
Yes.
because what we'll do is it's like we set up a site and it's by email invitation and then you just click on a link and you have
Great,
access to
that
it.
works.
Excellent.
And just to be that corny qualitative person for a second, what's nice is that you won't only have this for the surveys, you'll have, the community's voice in these transcripts, for a very long time, and you can always, go back to it. And then, it always makes them feel really, like participatory research, like they are a part of the community and, you're taking their feedback. So just throwing that out there, why I love qualitative.
Good point.
Yeah, like I said, one of the best things that you can do is when you do, it's like, yeah, I imagine this guy have to be put in some sort of report or presentation and give to selectmen. You pull out the really pithy quotes and throw them in there. So, you go, it's like, and here's what everyone says, 20% said they want this, 18%, and then here's a quote from this person.
Qualities.
That just says exactly what they need to say.
Yeah, that's what our previous survey was presented.
I'm sorry, I'm running for selectmen. Soon.
Yes, we need to hurry up and get it done.
You like 50 quotes.
I'll tell you which quotes to use.
All right, sounds good. So the next meeting you said was November 6th.
November 6th at 6:15 Eastern time.
Sure, at that time, I mean, how many weeks ahead? That's like 3 weeks from now.
Just over 2.
Just over 2.
Just over 2.
Okay, all right. So that's actually not a bad time then to start setting up. I think we call it the recruitment phase, right? Which is, getting the email organized, getting the 50 to 60 names and getting really ready to sort of drop that and get that moved to the next level, get the survey set up.
Yeah.
So I think that meeting would be really about organizing that recruitment, and then it's sort of when you push the button, and then you said it was like 2 weeks to get that.
And I'll tell you, you're running into a challenging
I was gonna
time.
say, so here comes the holiday.
Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly.
Time.
Uh-huh,
It's like between New
Oh, yeah,
Year's
yeah.
or Thanksgiving and Christmas,
yeah.
good luck doing anything with
Right,
anybody.
exactly.
It's like, they're not there.
So we should be
But we
shooting
can
for
still be working.
maybe
Right,
beginning of January for the.
So yes, it's like, unless you could get it out, it's like right at early January. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, who's gonna cut? It's like, well, if you're offering them $75, then you can motivate.
You need Christmas shopping.
right.
Some Christmas shopping. But again, yeah,
It's turkey.
they're busy enough doing other things that they're
yes.
probably not gonna be as interested. And so, but that will actually influence the timing of your invitation emails. You don't want to send them out in November.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
December.
Correct.
Right,
yeah,
you want to literally,
Christmas parties.
right, absolutely, fills everyone's calendar up, so.
but yeah, that would be a good January 2nd or January 3rd.
You're gonna send them the email addresses?
Yeah, I have a list here.
I'll just put that on as an.
I'm sending them the email list of the committee members, the focus group questions that we have right now, and
Mission.
the mission statement.
Okay,
I mean, it seems like we could maybe do the recruitment part in December.
Yes.
And have the meetings in early January.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
The question is, are they gonna remember?
Because people don't take 3 weeks off.
Well, the question is, like I said, it's like, oh yeah, I think I agreed to do something. It's like, but that was back in December. I can't remember. Again,
In December, people that aren't busy say they're busy, so it's like, just the fact that
But
everybody
it
else.
gives extra, if we use 6 weeks, say, for
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
we start recruiting end of November and do it through
Oh, yeah,
December,
on board with
then
that.
we could, I think, be ready to, rather than starting recruiting in January,
Yeah.
that's wait to February.
Exactly.
the risk there you go, it's like that someone says, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then, wait a second, yeah, I can make all sorts of promises what I may be doing on January 12th. Yeah, it's like in
We
November.
get time to plug them in December.
There you go.
And so if the
Yeah,
focus groups are happening in January, then we start to get back together in February and workshop the survey itself.
And then in March, we have a presidential primary.
Oh.
So it might be another good way to get input is when people come to vote.
Aren't you
do
good?
the survey at the primary, yeah.
Among other places, I mean, we should
Right,
use all our
right.
sources, but
Right.
that's a good way to get the people that aren't. People that vote in person oftentimes aren't that internet savvy.
Exactly, yeah,
Great.
okay,
Have a
thank you. Thank you, Ally, for joining us, and I think you're trying to find pizza next, is that?
Yeah, it was a pleasure to meet you. I mean, everyone. I wish I was there in person. I wish I could moderate the actual groups. They sound like a lot of fun, so.
And Ally, I'll be in touch tomorrow morning with each of the lists for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, and then I'll be in touch, on Friday with a draft of the guide.
I wondered if we could take, not tonight, but take a moment at some point in the future when you're working with us to just do a sort of a role play of what it would look like with our team being the group, and just to kind of see how you manage it. So it would give us a guide.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
And I think I also want to, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I do better knowing and then what? I still feel like I'm at the, and then what? So we have the transcribed
Right.
focus groups.
Then Brian takes that and he creates the survey, the statistical survey.
And
No, you have the
that's-
transcripts. That has to be, you have to compile that into what in essence is gonna be a short report.
Yeah,
Cause I'm quite certain, if nothing else, it's like, you know, if maybe some sort of interim report goes through. Then this like person might wanna know what the heck's going on. That just says, here's what it is, here's the feedback. It's like, what you do is you summarize what came out of the groups, because you're not gonna build a survey reading through 800 pages of transcripts.
right.
What you do is you have someone read through, okay, here's the question on this thing, let's grab all that and summarize it. Let's grab all this and summarize it. If you find a pithy quote, set that aside because it might be used later. Because, I mean, you have, in essence, all right, what are the needs? Let's see what people listed as the needs. It's like, what are their thoughts about the community center? Well, there's these concerns about that. Maybe we got to craft some questions around their concerns.
Right,
So it's like, what would make you go to a community site? It's like, so you come up, it's like, they're gonna say, yeah, it's like, I think you need a swimming pool and a bowling alley and this and this and this. And what'll make me go there if you put a swimming pool and a bowling alley and, you know, have lots of free parking. And so, and that's just, again, that's one piece. I mean,
And
it's like you have the survey plus you have the committees that are gonna go through and say, all right, we have the feedback, we got the general way of what people are telling us. Now we need to quantify that. But we need to quantify in a sense that, you know, they're not designing a community center. We are, like, in essence, designing a community center. So we need to ask the appropriate questions. Some of which are going to be the fun questions like, well, how are we going to pay for this? Now, are you willing? It's like, again, it's like, if we do this, it's like, are you willing to pay for this? So, yeah,
And then that survey goes out to.
the entire population.
and that's what we're talking about, soliciting that
Yes,
for
I like
everyone
that,
and
okay.
anyone, and like Mark was saying, at the primary or at the,
And then we get those results back.
And that probably goes into the final report that the selectmen are going to see. It's like, this is what it
Who
is.
does
The
that
needs
final
assessment.
report?
Ah, that was a good question.
Who pulls all that together?
Well, so,
Will we have students at that point again?
well, part of our service is to help pull the report
So,
together. So
and
that's-
I have already told, I'm happy to volunteer sometime.
So
to do that too.
one of
Collaborating on-
one of the things we have to consider too, when Ally said, you know, a 90 minutes really good. At 90 minutes, we're looking for 5 to 6 groups, we're looking at 160 to 192 pages of transcripts.
Yes, that's what I'm
That's
saying.
that's a lot of
But we've
material.
also got video. You know, sometimes it's easier to watch the video, I think, to listen to transcript.
except the transcript program.
That's
will
where you
put in
get
all
the
the words.
Quotes and everything from the transcripts, you could make errors if you just.
The quotes will have to get up in the video, you know, so if we know there's a pithy comment at minute
Right.
12, we'll go back to that video and get the verbatim quote out of the video.
Yeah, and I guess the question is, will we start to see a lot of overlap from these? That's the hopefully the idea.
And it might be good if you have a lot of overlap.
Right.
Stop.
That'll start to
Okay.
suggest
That's
there really
helpful, thank
are concrete.
So what you're saying, I mean, it's like they're broad questions. There are questions. You can say, I've asked this question here, asked this question here. Let's take all 5 groups and aggregate the responses to that question across all 5 groups and see what we see in terms of themes.
Absolutely.
Once that time comes to, we call that report like the top line report after focus groups. I'm happy to, show an example of how I do it and how I go through my process. And it's just an easy way to just go through each transcript, get your top line findings and key findings with some quotes that support all those key findings.
Right, it's like, yeah, your transcriptions are great source of information, but your report's not gonna be 192 pages long. Your report's gonna be a lot shorter, especially a top line report, Ally, or what, couple pages? You just do the top lines,
Yeah, I'd say about, 4 to 6 pages.
because you're not trying to capture every subtle little detail, what you're trying to catch are the themes.
When you
Yeah,
start
the
to
reason
write-
why they're that long is just because you have example quotes.
When you start to write the police reports, I'd go through and I get the confession at whatever minute. So I go in that one, re-listen to it and get it verbatim, but the other stuff was a flavor of,
Right.
conversation was.
Okay,
This looks like we have a plan.
I think we do. So, good.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming
Yeah,
in, Brian.
thank you,
Thank you,
thank
Ally,
Thank
for
you.
coming
You
online.
guys,
Thank you.
have a great rest of your night.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Night.
Thanks.
Okay,
All right,
I'll
Yeah.
email her. And we can go from there.
perfect.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah,
Thank you much.
And thank you for the name tag.
Oh, you're welcome.
There
I'll have to
you
get
go.
that.
Once you got the exciting business.
Yeah.
Talk about you.
Minutes.
Are we done with that?
All right.
I think we are, 20 well.
No, you're ready.
We'll look forward to seeing everyone in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Mhm, Take care.